Concord Players are putting on a production of She Kills Monsters in Concord, Massachusetts, running from November 7th through the 22nd. She Kills Monsters is a play about a woman coming to terms with tragedy through 2nd edition D&D. It'll tug at your heartstrings and be rad as the nine hells. For more information and to purchase tickets, check out their website at concordplayers.org.
Welcome to the Game Masters Book Club, where great fiction becomes your next great tabletop role-playing experience. Returning Game Masters Karen Ford, Rob Trimarco, and Jason Keeley are reviewing All Systems Red, the first novella and the beginning of the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Slacker sect units, evil corpse, and alien remnants are just a few of the topics we'll cover as we discuss this hugely popular series. Let's get into the conversation. Welcome, everybody, to the Game Masters Book Club. We are here today to talk about Murderbot, specifically All Systems Red by Martha Wells. And I have three fabulous Game Masters here who are going to tell us about not only their gaming experience, but their gaming experience with robots. And we're going to start off with Rob. Rob, why don't you tell the people about what kind of a Game Master you are and tell them about your favorite experience with a robot in your tabletop role-playing game.
Surely, my name's Rob Trimarco, avid gamer for 1,000 million years of playing all the games that I could get my hands on, which is a lot. I fill my home with books of games and miniatures. So what kind of GM am I? I guess I very much a player favorable one. Not so much like you're going to win every time, but it's going to be, I'm going to present a fun and wacky adventure to you that will have elements of dramatic and fun times. But, death is fine in a game, but what's more fun and crazy is to put your character through some really terrible yet survivable circumstances that, please let me die. No, I will not. Will not.
Death is too good for Rob's players.
Too quick. But, also I like adventure and we did it, everybody. The heroes triumph over a terrifying situation. I want to work toward that goal. You're not we did it and most of us are dead and I'm sad. Let's not. That's not how I roll. And my favorite experiences with robots, a lot of the sci-fi games I've played, some form or another, even the fantasy ones. Jason, when we first started gaming together, ran an Eberron game for myself and a few others. There's always someone playing a Warforged, and Jason played in a game with us. My friend Safe ran Tomb of Annihilation using the Eberron universe, and he said, make the character you think that can survive the Tomb of Annihilation. So I did. And it was a Warforged juggernaut who was barely alive and barely had control of his own reason. Mental effects didn't work on him. Drains and constitution stuff didn't work on him because he was just this thread of life in him that was barely bright. And it was a lot of fun to be a robot in the fantasy world.
Karen, tell the folks about your gaming persona and about robots.
Alrighty. As far as being a GM, I tend towards very rules light games. I try to keep the experience as much like playing pretend as kids as possible. Obviously, you have to roll dice sometimes, otherwise you don't know how things work out. But I prefer to really just have a bunch of friends who come up with a bunch of super fun characters that have adventures together. I love having snippets of character backgrounds and pulling those things in, or having people pull them in ways that are obviously to help them, but also even much funnier to their own detriment, to cause wacky situations that they have to then get themselves out of. When it comes to robot in a game or whatnot, I was looking through all the stuff that I've been running in the past, 5 years or so, and I don't run a lot of sci-fi, but I did do a Doctor Who game last year, and in one of the adventures, the whole party had to go to a future hospital that had a psych ward in the way that there's the Napoleon psych ward on TV is a trope, but it was a psych ward of people who thought they were the doctor. And it included a Dalek who thought that it was the fourth Doctor.
Favorite Dalek.
Yeah, complete with scarf and instead of, its plunger coming out, it had a little bag of jelly babies. And they ended up kind of befriending the Dalek, and one of the characters went off on its own adventures with the Dalek at the end of it.
There you go. Fantastic. Jason? tell us about yourself and robots.
Yeah, I'm Jason Keeley. I'm a senior designer for the Pathfinder role-playing game at Paizo. But I've also worked a lot on Starfinder, so I have some robot knowledge. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about some other completely different robots. As GM, I would say paradoxically, I love rules, but I'm also very improvisational.
Very much.
If I can get a rule set that I can improvise within, I'm all for it. Figure it out and work with it. But I like the rules, but also I'll bend quite easily on a lot of stuff over having a good time. And I was thinking about robots that I've played, and two came to mind that were fun. We played a post-apocalyptic game, and I was a sort of a version of one of those Fallout Mr. Handy robots. Who I think had accidentally downloaded a bunch of like weird trivia into his brain as well. So every once in a while, I would say something just completely random and trivial. And then early days and the Imaginauts. Can't remember the Toon game that we were.
That was like second game ever.
It was like the second one ever, and it was a Toon, but we were Star Trek, so I played a robot that was I think I called him Deep Blue South. He was just a robot with a southern accent, basically, programmed to sound as much like a riverboat captain as possible, but also very smart. Anyway, yeah, those are some fun robots.
I forgot all about that.
Wow. I mean, and Toon, too. There's a callback. I haven't played Toon in a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
So my name's Eric Jackson. I'm the host of the show, and I've been playing, again,
since the Pleistocene.
And I don't play as much science fiction as I'd like to. I have run a couple games at cons, and I've really enjoyed them. I especially enjoyed running Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space game, which should tell you kind of a little bit about the kind of GM I am. Given this particular podcast, I pull a lot of my stuff from the pop culture that I ingest, and I love to throw it back out at people and have them experience it. I love a good game with great people and great improvisation, and I am not a party killer by any stretch of the imagination. And I let characters do weird things, like my robot thing, where in my current campaign, one of my characters got a part of a horde. He found a broken chess-playing robot. It was this little tiny robot. And so he focused on, like, every time he would go to a magic person, have them fix it a little bit, and it would get better at chess. This guy was like a barbarian and couldn't play chess at all. So the robot couldn't beat him. So it was not a smart robot. And then eventually the robot was captured and the bad guys implanted bad software into it. And it was going to be a betrayal. And then after that, an ancient demigod of fixing things, including things like tears in the elemental planes, caught up with the party and took the robot under its wing and fixed it and gave it more sentience. And it kept building up and building up. And the guy who was playing the character who owned the robot realized that his character, his dwarven character, had to return home for something. But he's like, but wait, I have a robot. And so the robot took over and became the player character, which I thought was just a ton of, like, basically this little tiny chess-playing robot who had done a whole bunch of things eventually became a member of the party, and that arc ended, and he just picked up the robot as the next arc. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Love it.
I'll get a quick poll. I'm going to quick poll, everybody.
Yeah, all right.
How bad do you feel when you kill a player character?
I don't know if I ever have. I try my hardest not to. I don't like it. I really can't stand the GM versus the players attitude, and I only really play with my friends that I absolutely adore. So I don't mind when everybody gets in like weird situations or gets hurt, but if someone died, it would bleh.
It's the worst.
Every character death I have either been a part of in dying or not so much causing has either been complete chance, like, oh, I rolled it. Oh, you rolled this failed. Like, remember when
I know what you're going to say. Yes, I know what you're going to talk about.
Yes. I think, look, I have such a great deck save. I just can't roll a 1. And I did, and I was liquefied. Yeah. Right?
The funny thing about that is that was the fault of another player character.
Yes.
Too. Casting yes, and you're like, no, I'll be fine. A
very powerful, like, she had such, like, a powerful elemental area spell effect. Like, I have to roll 2 saves. I'm like, I'm just not going to roll a 1 at all, right? It's just hard to roll 1s. I'm like, she's like, no, you're in the area. Just do it. This thing is terrible. Just do it. And she did it, and I rolled a 1. And that is how that guy turned to juice. But, like, for the most part, I've worked out with a GM, like, Jason, when I had a character that was I wanted to build like a wizard fencer, and like all the spells would be cast on himself to make himself better at fencing, right? But that character didn't work out. I, again, fucking rolled a 1 twice. It like scares you to death.
Yeah.
Psychic killer or something like that.
Yeah, phantasmal killer.
Phantasmal.
Phantasmal killer, and I rolled a 1 like, oh god, I'm dead, and then 1 dead. But that's okay. I came back as the best character ever, making a pact with a devil and becoming a full-on sorcerer. I loved it. Like that sort of thing, I'm down. Death, like, there have been games where a run down a hallway, a guard randomly shoots a crossbow bolt. Oh, you died. Like,
Okay.
that happened to Matt Cody and Jay's game.
Yeah.
Like that is unsatisfying. But if you have a cool story thing happen along with the death, then it's fun.
Yeah, and in that vein, if somebody actually like sacrifices themselves for the party, or if it is a player generated self death, no problem. Yeah. Amazing, love it.
Yeah, absolutely. When death is only the beginning, you can pull something like that. That's always good.
Yeah.
Instances in my regular game where characters have been like, okay, well, this is how I'm going out. And again, if there's an agreement between the DM and the player that this is the appropriate death, then that's okay. But I don't think I've ever, not since the very early 80s in my teen years, have I just been like, nope, you're dead. As a mature game master, I don't just wipe somebody out because, you rolled too bad. Oh, well, too bad. There's always a reason. Like, even if you died in a thing, I might have had that character come back as like a ghost character, or he possesses a squirrel and he has to walk. He's a squirrel for like an adventure. And then we transfer to like a robot body, right? Something like that.
What about you, Hersey?
Yeah.
I feel real bad.
I can tell you a story, but go ahead.
I feel awful when it happens, and often it does happen because of random chance. I don't never try to plan, but like Rob had said, like I think it's in certain games it is you must definitely threaten death to make it the game interesting, but you never really try to. A lot of games have the buffers there. Spells and magic and stuff that you can really just sort of like, I'm going to hit you for 150 hit points. Oh no, and then we got a healer and it'll be fine, right? I've put just like fairly recently, right? Rob I put Epi down twice in a single fight, but he's fine. His character didn't die. So again, I think that's the exciting part.
There for sure.
The chances are there, and that's the makes it exciting. But then when you do something, the thing that I think you're thinking of, Rob, is when I coup de grace someone. Because they were, had the paralyzed spellcast. I felt bad about that after, because it was like, oh, this is impossible for you to survive. Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, I said I'm doing it, so it's happening. So,
also, it was on us because we knew it was happening, and it took an extra round, so everyone took a shot at trying to kill the guy killing our friend, and we all either missed or did shitty damage.
Yeah,
so,
that happens.
Oh, sorry, John.
And actually, I think that ties us really well into the Murderbot thing. Yeah, I know, because that is one of the things about Murderbot. Very much a throw themselves at it, and even if they don't survive, they kind of survive, right? Like that death is not necessarily death. And that's one of the cool things about playing robots. I'm going to give a quick brief of what this Murderbot book, specifically All Systems Red, which is the first novella in the Murderbot Diaries. It's the first installment of the Murderbot Diaries, which is told through the voice of a cybernetic being who's the property of a galactic nation. It is used to provide security as a SEC unit for human clients. Normally, SEC units have a governor module, which prevents them from acting independently from their orders, but this SEC unit has hacked its governor module, which regulates its behavior. Now it's capable of free action. Knowing it's going to be destroyed if this fact is figured out, it continues to do its duty, though it slacks off at every opportunity, watches fictional media whenever it possibly can. In this first installment, the SEC unit, which calls itself Murderbot, hence the Murderbot Diaries, is sent with a team of scientists to a world to research for mineral and other types of resources, only to be targeted by operatives from an evil corporation, Grey Chris, which have discovered illegal alien remnants, and they are eliminating the survey teams on the planet to keep this secret. Murderbot, at first in order to protect its secret of the hacked governor module, and later genuine feelings for the scientist who actually treat it like a real person, protects the groups from Grey Chris operatives, gets them off the planet, and as the novella concludes, the Murderbot goes off on its own to figure out what it wants to do next. And There are another 6 or 8 novella and full-length novels that talk about that. What did I miss? It's such a dense little novella, but what other themes did I not hit? Because I know I missed.
There's a little bit of themes of found family,
Mhm.
I would say, and the Murderbot group of people that Murderbot is working for are kind of hippies, and they're like, we don't like this practice, and they try to befriend Murderbot, but Murderbot is also like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm trying to pretend to be a robot here and whatever. But then it ends up basically liking them and saving their lives.
Karen?
Yeah. Also themes, I mean, there's themes in there of like trauma recovery. It's also very funny and adventurous and exciting on top of all this other stuff. So if you haven't read Murderbot, don't let all of this like deep philosophical whatever turn you off, because it's a fantastic and quick read, and the whole series is one of my favorites of all time.
Karen, I believe when prepped for this, you reread everything.
Yeah, no, you can't, like, I couldn't stop. So good, including the new short story that came out like 2 days ago.
Yeah. And Rob, this was your first time through with Murderbot. Did I miss anything?
No, I enjoyed the story. I am looking forward to reading more in the series.
Fantastic. All right. Speaking of more in the series and more things to do, We Are All Game Masters is a fun story. So now is the time to step forward and talk about if we wanted to run a Murderbot game, how would we do it? Rob, why don't you start us off and tell us what game system and mechanics you think would help evoke Murderbot into your TTRPG?
I think there's a lot of really good sci-fi and cyberpunkular games that I would like. And, one of them would be like it is.
Real word.
You understand how it works. You know how language works. You make up a word and people go, that's not a word. And then it becomes
cyberpunkular is now my new favorite word of the week.
Thank you. And I would probably use the tech and stuff from the cyberpunk world and, skew it a bit so it's a little more space, like cyberpunk meets The Expanse sort of a thing. It was advanced technology, but still had a lot of that explorer vibe to it. So I think that would be one of the base systems I would try to run it in. There would be one person would be a Murderbot and everyone would be like the support crew, like the Doctor Who game. Someone's a doctor and then everyone else is like companions. Like there's never a party of Doctor Who's, right?
Well, if there's a special.
And I don't watch the show. Don't at me.
10 years.
Jason.
There is a party of doctors.
Yeah, there are a couple of episodes
Yeah.
where they get a bunch of doctors together.
A couple of episodes, but it's not like the
No,
standard.
it's not the
no,
standard.
Like
No.
everyone, fly your tortoises. Tardai.
No, that's only for the season finales. Karen, why don't you go next?
Okay, I thought of two games. First, Shadowrun, near and dear to my heart, is the first role-playing game I ever played. And if Murderbot is not corporate hell, like nothing is. It's just in space and not on Earth. It also translates directly with all like the cybernetic and biometric enhancements, all that stuff. And you can approach the Murderbot universe from like so many angles. Whether you're creating people to go on missions to save people from corporate indenture or like raid corporate facilities, etc. Character building with this would be super fun. When a Shadowrun I know is like clunky to run, but their character building has always been top notch. It's just has so many fun things that you can pull from. I absolutely used to adore those like supplementary source books like Shadow Tech and the Rigger source book. See Rob's thumbs upping me. Because shopping is the best part of all of that.
100%.
Actually, in one of the Murderbot short stories, it's just a little brief one, it's minor spoiler, but Murderbot is sending Dr. Mensa all these pings being like, it's looking through all these catalogs being like, will you buy me this? Will you buy me this? Will you buy me this? But I really want this. Will you buy me this? And it's exactly what Shadowrun is. And also maybe playing this way you could make the hacking and or drones actually fun, because those tended to be the most tedious parts of playing that game. The other thing I thought of is Alien the role-playing game by Free League. In my brain, Murderbot always calls it the company that owns it, but it never actually says the name of the company. So in my head, it's just Weyland-Yutani, because they're terrible. So what I liked about the Alien role-playing game is there's this mechanic where as the player characters, you get these secret agendas per each act of the game that are supplied to you by the GM, and you don't necessarily, you don't know what's going to happen, and it'll throw things off and make it chaotic. And in the game itself, there's things like, oh, hey, look, you're the secret robot that wants to kill everybody. Haha, it's Alien. But especially if you're playing in like a corporate rim, I think that would work so well in this universe. They also have things like stress dice and panicking, which 100% works because a lot of terrible garbage happens out here in space.
Jason, I'm going to jump on top of this only because I just realized that the Alien game is made by the same people as one of the games that I'm going to talk about. Also, to plug Jason, my first thought would be to run this in Starfinder, just because everyone's very comfortable with Dungeons and Dragons, basically Dungeons and Dragons in space or Pathfinder in space, so that D20 sort of feel. And I think it's a great system for building characters as well, and you could get something really cool out of it. But if you wanted to push it a little bit further, Free League Publishing also has a game called
Coriolis, the Third Rising.
The setting of which is completely useless, but it's set in a much further future, supernatural stuff involved in it. But one of the things that it's really good about is building ships and crews. So instead of building like a Murderbot and a bunch of supporting characters, this is all about building a crew. So you could get that hippie crew with their one weird sec unit as a whole thing. It also talks a lot about loans and financial
Practices.
Got a little bit of that shopping thing that happens, character building that you were talking about, Karen.
It's also got dice pools, which makes it like Shadowrun.
And one of the things I like about that is it has an optional bit that where they have darkness points, which is if you kind of like what game is it that has I think it's Blades in the Dark that has Deal with the Devil, where you can say, I missed, okay, do something horrible to me later, I need
Succeed.
So it allows you to get another roll and another shot at something, and then you get these darkness points, so like guns jam at exactly the wrong moment or something along those lines, which, given the slapstick nature of Murderbot, the idea that the most terrible thing could possibly happen, now you have to deal with it, feels like a mechanic you'd want to have. Ditch the supernatural and the most of the setting stuff. You could probably rework anything that's supernaturally into the alien remnant if it was necessary mechanically.
I have an honorable mention.
I really liked Coriolis. I would have liked to try that.
You mentioned the Expanse,
and all that.
and there is an Expanse game.
Jason, wrap it up for us.
I've had it and I've read through it, but I've never played it, and I don't know much about the Expanse. This is why it's just an honorable mention. I don't know how much like robot stuff is in the Expanse, but I bet you could probably take the core of something like the Expanse role-playing game and maybe
AI monster robot-y things for the most part. You would have to shove the future up in that, but it does a very good job of real space is a problem. Like, you don't hand wave no gravity. You know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Something explodes, you're screwed. It's not Star Wars.
But the main game that I would use, to go back to the cyberpunkular entries on our list previously, is a game called I'm going to pronounce it Cyberpunk, but it's spelled CBR plus PNK. It is a small game, and it's literally just like a pamphlet of a game that takes the Blades in the Dark engine and just kind of strips it down into bullet, essentially, of an engine. Again, it's Cyberpunk. You're playing runners going on essentially like a heist to do that, and the classic stuff that you would do in Blades, and has a lot of the similarities of Blades in terms of like stress and wounds and whatnot. But you can also, like, your die can get glitching, and you can have augmentations and stuff like that. So I think that would be, you could be like, oh well, I am mostly augmented, because they had, in the Murderbot world, they're, your sort of regular meat humans. You do have some augmented humans who have some like, data jacks in their neck and stuff like that. But then also you have the full Murderbots who look like they have some organic elements, right? Because they're supposed to look people to make people comfortable, or whatever that reason was. But and I think that just for that it would be good, because again it's sort of like a little rules light-ish, and you can really just sort of add stuff like alien remnants and stuff like that.
So anyone have any final mechanics, last minute things after the discussion we want to throw in?
I mean, just like the Blades in the Dark, like the clocks thing, like for heists, like the heisty stuff in the book was fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I would have to do something for that.
Hmm.
Yeah, the plan at the end.
Oh yeah, we did the plan at the end, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on to next part, where we maybe not necessarily want to have Murderbot itself be the main goal, but just what's some cool stuff that's in this book that we want to throw into our own campaigns, be they sci-fi or other. Karen, do you want to give it a shot and lead us off?
Sure. A couple things in here spoke to me. First of all, as you mentioned, the alien remnants, which are so bizarre and so only hinted at, that there is such a world to build around them. They're just so completely alien, for lack of a better word, and different that, I don't know. It just seems like such a wonderful little like playground. And also, just in general, I love a spaceport. I don't know if it's from seeing Star Wars when I was like 3 years old, and just I love miscellaneous aliens, and I know there's not aliens floating around in here, but just these liminal spaces where all sorts of people are like coming and going, and there's shops from all over the galaxy, universe, whatnot, and how to like sneak around and get past security. Just seems like also another like wonderful setting to like take players through.
One thing I want to hint on a little bit is the you talked about the media that Murderbot watches, and there's essentially like this whole other thing that is called the Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon, where we get sort of like ideas of what's going on in it, and it seems such like a ridiculous space soap opera nonsense that the Murderbot is like, well, in this episode, something. Oh, I'll be as brave as Flight Commander Koji or whatever, right? Like, I would love to, probably take something like this, and this is something similar to what Karen and I have done in our group a couple times, where you have the players play two different groups of characters, essentially. One, sort of their main characters, and then like secondary times, like, oh, let's at the end of the session or at the beginning of the session, let's do a scene from this media within your world, plays a different sort of like, and probably there wouldn't be like mechanics involved with that. It would just, messing around. At one point, we played like a Greek heroes style game, but we also played all of the Greek gods in between. And I think at the beginning of every session, someone decided to put like something into the story that the gods have just sort of planted in there that we as the players would have to do to it. Basically, we were gods for everyone else's players. So like, I gave a boon to Karen's player, for instance, because I was, you were playing some archetype, right? Or Artemis was your patron god.
I don't remember. I remember playing...
Or Athena. Remember when you were in Athena?
Oh, it might have been. I remember the later one where Hephaestus was mine, but I feel we've done this like more than once. But yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah.
I think we could do bad stuff to each other too, right? If you got mad at the other gods. Not terrible, yeah.
We did that a little bit too. Yeah. Like I think the Minotaur is going to show up in this, whatever, in this episode.
That's fantastic because the Murderbot obviously draws inspiration. You could almost see that as like
a game mechanic.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like if you ran the Sanctuary Moon about bravery at the beginning of your thing, then maybe for that episode, the Murderbot is, to use the D20, the 5e sort of thing, advantage on anything where bravery saves or something.
100%. What I probably try to do is maybe like have a couple index cards if I was at a actual table, which I haven't been to in ages, but be like, okay, we just sort of fuck around and do a scene in that other media or whatever, and then like someone writes down a theme of the episode, and then you just put that in front of everyone, and they're like, okay, this is the theme of today's sort of adventures, and anyone can point at that.
Remember that. Remember to do that. We do that.
You should totally do that. That's a great idea.
It's vaguely taken from Epi's Swords Without Master too, where you write down motifs and themes on index cards, and then you can come back to them later.
Which is kind of the opposite of. I played the Firefly role-playing game. That has a flashback
mechanic,
like a heist thing, where like you and I remember Budapest very differently. Remember what happened in Istanbul? Yes, let's do. And then you get a
flashback,
and you play that out, and then that impacts the game going forward. This is the opposite of that, where you're.
Foreshadowing instead of flashbacking. I do love a flashback mechanic. I just have to like have people remember to use it sometimes because players will forget that you can flashback, have a flashback and fix this.
Rob, what do you got for us? What are you going to steal?
Pretty much touched on a lot of the ones, like the flashback stuff, the Blades in the Dark clocks. Like the heist aspect is always a fun thing because it changes the way you play. The pressure is more intense rather than player created pressure. We have to go rescue that woman from hell, but let's go shopping first and get stuff and then load up and get better weapons. Then we'll go. But the heist is like, oh shit, I didn't heal. I didn't have, the clock is ticking down. I have to do something desperate. So you make decisions you normally wouldn't, maybe in a fabricated pressure. Not that this isn't fabricated, it's a game, but the clock is like, if you don't do it in this time, bad stuff is definitely going to happen, that you're going to have a real problem mitigating because you didn't deal with it in the time limit. So that's always been a big, like a fun thing to incorporate.
That prevents the completely over-prepped player.
Right. Which I love to be. I love to be the player.
Fear of imminent failure leads to the best creativity.
My thing that I like about it is the overwhelmingly more powerful big bad evil guy. In this case, Grey Chris or one of the corporations. I like you can't just walk up and punch the corporation in the face.
Yeah.
Although Murderbot is very good at punching, and it does punch a lot of its problems. I'm not saying that isn't part of what's happening here. Murderbot is forced to buckle down when it's its own, when it doesn't have the resources of all of its friends, and it sort of just keeps like hides and pretends. Even in later books, he's still trying, or it's trying to just like skulk around the outside of this because it's just so big. That makes for a really great sort of campaign in an aspect, because if you can't just take down the big bad evil dudes of Grey Chris, and that means you can't do a frontal assault, which means you've got to plan around it and build up. You've got to, maybe the opposite of what we're talking about on the clock, in that you're building up, you have to build up these
resources.
Even get there. There's 10 different stories in the Murderbot thing, and they're not even close to taking down Grey Chris, or if they are, they only wounded it slightly, and there's this whole other thing that they're still working on. So it's anything that'll make you come back 10 times over. That's a campaign that'll keep players clearing their schedules for you. They'll keep coming back, and we all know that's the real trick, right? People don't want to take their Saturdays off and come hang out for a couple hours and play, so that's what I would take from this ultra powerful bad guy that you can't just punch. Then on to media. Jason, why don't you talk to us about
what sort of media?
Fun stuff that was similar to Murderbot that you would use for inspiration in a tabletop role-playing game.
I want to talk about the video games Citizen Sleeper 1 and 2, which have come out in the past couple of years. They're pretty recent. I think Citizen Sleeper 2 came out in like January, February, or something like that. Anyway, it is not quite a visual novel. It's got a lot of text to read. It's very story-based. It's very much a narrative game, and it has an almost board game, role-playing game like mechanic to it, where at the beginning of the day you roll a bunch of dice and then you apply these six-sided dice to the things you can do, and that determines whether or not how well or poorly you succeed. But the setting is very much similar in a lot of ways to Murderbot, because it's got corporate debt and stuff like that. But you play as a sleeper. And a sleeper is a robot who is an exact copy of someone who's been put into cryogenic suspension. And the sleeper does the works off that other person's debts while they're just sort of there. So they're a completely fabricated entity, and they are tied to corporations, and they have to inject themselves with serums so their bodies don't completely break down. But in both these games, you're basically playing one of these sleeper robots that has been gone rogue. Right, and you're out there trying to just survive for yourself, trying to make you make friends, and you maybe help them out, or you try to get off this space station and you hack into stuff and do all sorts of stuff, but you're also like, while your body is deteriorating, you've got to figure out a way to get it back. That's sort of the plot of the first one. That has a little more stuff in it, that has like, you get a crew of a spaceship. You take your crew on jobs, and you do these jobs, and the crew also have some dice that you apply to stuff, and those jobs are all very often timed. Try to get them done before that, but again, you also have this threat of these big bad corporations. They're both great games. They're both so well written, fantastically realized. If you want to like read a bunch of fiction where it is very intentional, that there is no gravity anywhere, so you never see like the words like he stood or he walked over there. There are always people pushing off bulkheads or just sort of floating, just sort of twisting and floating. Like that detail alone is almost worth the price of admission. And it's a fun game. They're also fun games.
Fifth on the list, yeah.
It's one of those games that just sort of keeps you like, do one more day. I roll the dice and see what kind. I got like 4 ones. Shoot, what the fuck I'm going to do with these? I'm going to have to just waste the day, and then all these other clocks are ticking down. It has that role playing game feel in a lot of ways.
Rob, you want to continue on?
There's a show that was on Netflix, and also is a role playing game now too, called Altered Carbon. And there's a whole section of it's very far in the future. There's definitely cybernetics and things like that, but also you can re-sleeve your consciousness into someone's body, because there's like this technology that I think either developed by aliens or they found it or whatever it was. It's a spike that's in your brainstem, and it allows you to download into a body. So you could essentially save your grandmother. And then every year on her birthday, she downloads into a willing person. In the show, it was this big, beefy biker guy who all of a sudden had a abuelita accent, and she was cooking for her family, and she's been dead for many, many years, essentially, physically. But also in there's a big AI component. So there was this sentient hotel. His name was Poe, and it was very Edgar Allan Poe looking, and it was a fun watch in that aspect. Like season 1, I think, was the best one. Like there was like maybe a season 2 that was okay, but season 1 for sure was the fun one. Also want to make a special shout out to Warbot in Accounting, a webcomic from maybe the earlier 2000s. There was a war fought with these AI behemoth, dreadnought looking, square, machine gun toting claw robots. And the war stopped. They were declared WMDs were deactivated, but the AIs in them were given rights so they can integrate into society. So now this warbot works in an accounting department. The only thing that's changed about him is a tie glued to his chassis, but he still has a minigun and a claw. Episode 1, he's like, oh, can you fax these? And he's standing over the fax machine, unable to do anything because he cannot press the button to dial or feed the paper. He is a warbot. And he's there the whole night, and someone the next morning comes in and says, oh, you got to dial 9 to get out. Early start today, huh? And he looks at the fax machine, and he crushes it. And the whole series is his failure to integrate, but no one really knowing that. They still involve him in like employee rallies and things, but he goes on dates to meet people, but he can't eat soup or participate in conversation. It's sad and horrifying, but hilarious.
I'm going to jump in, and there's plenty of really great robot books that are out there. Bobiverse by Dennis E. Taylor and Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie is another great one. But because you brought up accounting, I have to bring up my favorite one of these, which is The Queen of Roses by
Elizabeth McCoy,
which is where an indentured AI program ends up being a security bot on a space cruise ship, and a murder happens. And that accountant and the AI ship have to solve the murder together. And they do a lot of really cool mystery solving things that are not traditional mystery solving things because they're AIs and they have different ways of approaching the problem. And I really think that Queen of Roses by Elizabeth McCoy does that really well. And the accountant, Serafina, even hates people like Murderbot. Like, it's an accountant, it wants to sit in a room and do accounting things. And now it has to talk to people in order to solve this, and it hates. So it really does have a lot of the same beats as Murderbot. It also came out a full
5 years
for Murderbot, so it's not a derivative. It's not. On the other side of it, the creatures becoming more or different than what they're supposed to be. I think The Last Unicorn by Peter Beagle is a great piece of that, because that is a creature that is meant to be one way, the unicorn, and it becomes something different. We have the butterfly that comes and talks to the unicorn, which is sort of like the hacked governor module. You're going to leave the place that you're at and you're going to go and do this. Now you have this other like purpose that you're working on. And she has transformations like Murderbot does. And she becomes a different kind of person like Murderbot does. Yes, it's a fantasy. Yes, there's immortals and giant flaming red bulls. It is not a robot. I think it has a lot of same elements. And finally, similarly, Susan from the Terry Pratchett Discworld novels is this odd duck of a person who's the granddaughter of death, and she really doesn't get people the way Murderbot doesn't get people. So if you just want snarky commentary like Murderbot, read anything with Susan from the Discworld, and you can get all snark, because, Pratchett is the master of snark. Karen, you want to wrap it up for us?
As we can kind of see, Murderbot is so many different things of a book. It's not anything you can kind of pin down. So it's kind of hard to be like, oh, if I liked Murderbot, what else should I read? But I've got a few in here. If you're into the whole alien remnants thing, may I recommend one of the most bizarre books, but amazing books I've ever read, which is Roadside Picnic by Arkadian Boris Strugatsky, if I pronounce that right. It's from the 70s. They're Russian authors. It's essentially about sometime, I guess, in their future, aliens came to Earth, didn't really encounter anybody, and left a bunch of crap there that nobody understands what it does. It's being studied by scientists. It's also being kind of plundered by people to sell off on black markets. It does weird, dangerous things, and sometimes just weird things, period, that nobody understands. And throughout the entire book, you don't really understand, but it definitely has that same like weird mystery of the alien remnants and of things being like truly, truly alien. Also, The Orbital Children, which is an anime. You can watch it on Netflix. It's sort of set in my mind somewhere between like 100 years from now and when Murderbot would be. It seems to be the like early space station era. There's corporate logos everywhere. It's based around a trip for kids up to this new space station that's been sponsored by their Google, which is Deagle. They have like spacesuits that they pull out of plastic that have the Uniqlo logo on it. Like, it's all very corporate, and it's all a bunch of people having to deal with a bunch of space nonsense that's going on. The main character is a kid who's a hacker who kind of hates everyone in the Murderbot way, but comes to understand friendship. It's really, really good. Also, I think a parallel can be drawn between this, if you like the sort of found family Motley Crue vibes, and if you like cozy things, A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It's a little too cozy for me, but I know a lot of people that do love it. But if you do like that found family vibe, and also questions of personhood and what makes a person, and where do we draw the line between like robot and whatnot, The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, which are a series of fairy tale retellings. The first one is Cinder, where the twist is the Cinderella character, her foot, she's part cyborg, so the whole cover of it is like a cyborg foot in a heel and whatnot. It's fantastic. It's fairy tales all flipped on their head, space, cyborgs, biomechanized people, what it means to be human, how people are treated when they're not perceived as human, no matter what they are, whether they are actually human or cyborg or whatnot, and they're absolutely fantastic.
There's a whole thing with like werewolves on the moon in that one that
Mm-hmm.
like anytime you get werewolves on the moon. Yes, also.
I also like a
fantastic.
Motley Crue vibes, but the band. Kickstart My Heart is a good combat combat song.
You are all awesome game masters who do awesome. Do you have anything that you'd like to plug for our audience? They should go see, can find your workplaces. What do you think? I'm going to go with
Obvious choice first.
Jason. He's the definitive professional among us.
We mentioned Starfinder a couple of times, and by now Starfinder 2nd edition is out, so go check it out. There's the core rulebook and stuff. There's a deluxe box set adventure called Murder in Metal City, which has a lot of robot stuff in it, and is very noir, so hopefully that is cool. I might be running that at some point. I had not a whole lot to do with the 2nd edition creation. It's just on support.
Karen?
I don't have any role-playing specific anything, but in case you did listen to the last episode I was on, I do volunteer work as a crisis counselor for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, and I work for the Crime Victims Treatment Center, who are a wonderful organization who provide tons of free services. So if you want to donate or help, you can go to cvtcnyc.org.
Rob?
I too am not professional, nor do I do anything publicly good. But I do want to say support your local gaming gathering groups and stores. There's a store, not too far from me in Glendale, Queens, called Cook's Crafts Shop with a SHOPPE.
Ooh, oldie-timey.
It's been around since like the 70s, and like the owner's grandma started it when her husband stopped. He had a fix-it shop, and he stopped doing the fix-it stuff, and then they made it a craft store for knitting and painting. And then it also got into, in the modern age, Warhammer and card games and Marvel Universe, all the miniature painting stuff and role-playing games. So I go there as much as I can. I pre-order all the stuff from them, and it's support your local nice people.
Is that where you got your 3,000 now beautifully rainbow-ordered paints?
Yeah, a little bit of them, yeah. Some online, and then a bunch from them. And if you see behind me,
It's beautiful.
not on this podcast. You can't see, this is a podcast audio only, but
Audio media.
I have a rack of a lot of miniature paints that I've rainbow ordered.
Approved.
Approved, absolutely.
I was very nervous. To show Karen, because what if the one paint was out of order? I would be whipped.
Yeah, if anybody knows anything about me, I love a good rainbow order.
Wow, there we go. I will wrap up and say that not only should you support your local game store, but support your local bookstore. I live
Up the street from a great local bookstore called Lala Books in Lowell, Massachusetts. I buy as many of my books as I can there, so support your local bookstore.
Yay!
And that's our discussion of All Systems Red, the first novella in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. Stellar thanks to our game masters Jason Keeley, Karen Form, and Rob Trimarco for their wit and gaming mastery wisdom. Thanks so much for being on the show. It was a ton of fun. Be sure to listen again when they return to discuss The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty.
You can find a complete transcript of today's discussion, as well as links to all of our podcasts at k-squareproductions.com/GMBC. You can learn about upcoming episodes on our social media on Blue Sky at gmbookclub.bluesky.social, on Facebook at Game Masters Book Club, on Mastodon at Game Masters Book Club, and on Instagram at Game Masters Book Club. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and comment on our episodes in your chosen podcasting space, and be sure to share those episodes with your gaming community. Continued Praise and thanks to John Corbett for the podcast artwork and Otis Galloway for our music.
Be sure to check out our next episode when Ian Eller, Alex Jackal, and Sean Murphy take us into the psychedelic post-apocalyptic sci-fi of Jeff Vandermeer's novel, Born.
You've been listening to the Game Masters Book Club, brought to you by me, Eric Jackson, and K-Square Productions. Thank you so much for listening. Later, gamers, and to paraphrase the great Terry Pratchett, always try to be the place where the falling angel meets the rising ape.